Frankie here. Today I am here with the one and only Bugz, Jason Berdini. We are here to talk about experience and knowledge on breaking. Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. It's an honor.
Thank you for having me.
Breaking since 98, 99, originally Calgary, Vancouver, Japan, somewhere in the mix there, and now Toronto, Canada, of course. Approach-wise, we've heard you talk on this point before, at least I have. The term you use is half move. I like that. Breaking down a move in such small parts that you just wouldn't even think of. So I'd like you to expand on that. And then also you have your word choice that you used before is forgettable winners. Everything is so competition focused nowadays. Mm-hmm. I know that's a lot. Just to contextualize the conversation though, let's start with upbringing and background too. How we move from city to city to city. Let's go through the highlights. And then the second part, we'll talk more about the style aspect.
Yeah, I started breaking in 98 in Calgary. I guess like everyone, maybe it's, you'd see it in your school. And so I saw it in like a talent show when I was in grade 7, but I didn't start until grade 8. I had a friend show me a 6-step. Some other friend had Battle of the Year 98, and we would play it on like, the TV with the VCR at school. Maybe a following tape might be like Freestyle Session 3, Ultimate B-Boy Session 2, where it's like Cujo with the green pants, like doing the crazy planche. It's funny because like, I guess some people call Calgary the Texas of Canada in a way, but like, yes, it's a lot of like, it's famous for the Calgary Stampede. When I look back, Calgary did have a thriving like hip hop scene. And it's not just breakers, but like, there's a lot of like DJs from there, and Pump was like, DJ Pump was a DMC champion. So I guess them having a night at like Cherry Lounge, which was a club that everyone would go to break. Maybe in the early days, I didn't realize like how good it was. There was like generations before me, shout out to Original Roots, and Moshe is part of them. They had multiple names, but now they're on the umbrella of Original Roots. Skill Methods, I believe, came to Calgary to perform at Calgary Stampede. And so Calgary Stampede is like a rodeo show with like acts that perform on stage, and maybe you might get a gig doing this show somewhere. But that was the connection between them, like States B-Boys coming to Calgary first. After that, we would see kind of American B-Boys come back to town, and I think that was like the spark of like this relationship. And so Moshe ended up moving down to the States and making his relationships there, like Beats and Pieces and Skill Methods were like his homies.
First of all, Calgary and hip hop, like,
yeah, I know.
Like, what? Getting to hear about how a city's overall hip hop scene feeds into the breaking. Does this resonate with you, this idea?
Yeah, I guess just even back in the day, all the elements would be hanging out together, and that was a much more normal thing. Now the elements are like separate. There's a guy in Calgary who isn't a b-boy. His name is Ryan Hoseway. He was just a hip hop head, but he had relationships because I believe he worked for like Universal. He'll bring in acts like The Roots. He was a promoter. So not only was he like involved in the breaking scene, throwing events, he was actually like doing real shit, bringing hip hop acts to Calgary and get us shows at these events. So we would be opening up for whoever. You'd never think like how valuable it was back then, but it's just like, wow, this guy existing is like amazing. I don't think he's doing events now. He's a lot older, but like for Calgary, I don't think Calgary would be what it is without this guy like who's just loved hip hop. So basically in 2002, Vancouver B-Boys came to Calgary to do a car show event. And it wasn't a battle, they just rolled to do a show. And then this big circle broke out. Like we heard breaking was gonna be there, but like it wasn't a battle, And so this big circle came out, and then the Vancouver B-Boys kind of called out, I guess, the older gen. And then at first it was just them battling. And then all of us joined in, and it became like two sides, but like some of us joined the Vancouver side, some of us joined like the Calgary side, but that was my first impression of like, yo, Vancouver B-Boys are nasty. Like I'd never seen them before. Seeing them first, it's like, yo, like I gotta watch Vancouver footage. And then through B-Boy World and stuff, there was a lot of like posts made of Vancouver. So some of the earliest things was like Filthy Feet posting their trailer. There's a jam called Battle City, and every year there'd be like a trailer for that, and it'd be like super hype. And so maybe I was always kind of like, oh, that's the closest city. Maybe I should think of to go there. And then also, like, Vancouver was so dope that, like, Iron Monkey, Energetic, Mosquito, Ruin, like, these people were going to Vancouver in the early 2000s. And so it's like, wow, like, you know, Americans are coming up. I had a first exhibitions against a guy named Rob Felon in like 2005, maybe 6. Seeing this jam was like, yo, I gotta go here. Maybe because I knew that like Calgary jams are smaller and you're always battling the same people. When I went to this jam, it was like a full gymnasium of people. The bleachers were full and there was like, I can't remember how many crews, but it was like crews of 10 battling each other. And so I came for the exhibition, but I ended up like teaming up with like a random squad, like Vancouver, Japan, and like Winnipeg. And so we entered that together and I just felt like, man, Vancouver's the next city. I eventually did get down with Soul Felons. There's a guy named Footloose who goes by Sodi and another guy named G1 in my crew. And maybe like, I kept on hearing like, these guys are the best in Vancouver. And like, I would watch them and be like amazed. Maybe my first time seeing G1 was 2004. Sodi was one of the B-boys in 2002 that I saw. So it's all these things like, I should go to Vancouver. So I eventually got down with the crew. They helped me move. I moved to Vancouver. They let me stay at their houses. You know, I became like Sodi's roommate. But Vancouver was like a really dope scene at one time. Yeah, I guess that is like kind of the whole story that like got me there.
How old were you? And what year was this?
Maybe like 22 was when I finally, I got like a GST check one year and then it was a big amount and I'm like, you know what, fuck this, I'm leaving. And I picked up in like a suitcase and then left to Vancouver. And so that was like 2008.
You moved for breaking.
I moved for breaking, yeah. So there was a time where like I was apprenticing electrician in Calgary and it's because my dad's an electrician. And so I like worked under him at some company. It was a 6 to 6 gig, but then also like a lot of employment in like Calgary with that industry is oil and gas. And so maybe you'll like work at a camp off-site and then do that for like weeks and come back and like have time off. So maybe I was looking at that lifestyle where it's kind of like I could have settled down and had money, or it's like I could be trying to do this dance thing. I didn't really know like if I could live off dance, but I just knew like I like liked it so much that I wasn't able to do it. I dropped out, which is maybe not the best in hindsight, but it's like I just followed what I wanted to do. I took that GST check and then I bounced and it was able to get me on my feet in Vancouver. And then I was there for about 9 years. There's a very small percentage of breakers in Canada, I feel, that were able to ever live just off dance. The entire population of Canada is 35 million. I think LA has like 30 million, you know what I mean? Just that city. To live off dance, you either have to have a dance studio or somehow be that person who can like teach all the time. I think there's maybe less than 5 people who I heard were able to do this ever. And so yeah, you know, I would just do random jobs in Vancouver and break. Like one of my first jobs, this guy named Rory Rocket from Filthy Feet, he got me, he was like managing at this company where I was a valet driver for like restaurants, driving high-end cars and Lamborghinis and stuff. That was like my first gig in Vancouver.
Let's just wrap up the story here. So Vancouver, how do we go from there to Toronto?
I had an ex-girlfriend who was Japanese. We met, we moved in together, and then her PR was ending. And so I actually kind of common lawed her, which is like help her stay in the country. But in order for that to happen, I had to like go to Japan and like live there until things were processed, and then brought her back. And so I guess that was the reason for me going to Osaka. I was there for about a year, teaching English here and there and breaking. To be honest, without her and her family's support, I wouldn't have been able to survive. I honestly still feel in debt, but like that year was like, I feel one of the illest years. Japan is such an interesting country. I think everyone loves Japan when they go. Maybe I was starting to see the societal differences that like Japanese struggle with when you're actually living there. But like when you go there for a short time, it's like magical. From Vancouver to Japan, when she was processed, she got a job opportunity to come to Toronto. It's like, what do you want to do? Do we want to go back to Vancouver where we were already doing that? Or it's like, let's just like throw ourselves in Toronto. Some of my crew from Vancouver ended up moving to Toronto. And so in the same way, we crashed with them until we got on our feet too. Same crew, but they don't break anymore. worked out in that way that it helped me move here. And Toronto as a city has been like a great choice. It has the most hip hop. Like when I first came to town, I was like, you guys had like, I think it was like 12, 15 jams in 1 year. And maybe I felt that was a lot compared to like Calgary and like Vancouver jams. It's just less people, less jams happening. So I was like, this is awesome. And they're like, yeah, it's always been like this. Toronto has always been thriving.
What year was Osaka?
Osaka was 2015, and I believe that I touched down in Toronto 2016.
Life circumstance has brought you to Toronto, which happens to be a breaking city, right?
Yeah. I feel that Toronto and Montreal are much more, it must be a population thing, right? But just much more things happening. If I was in Calgary or Vancouver, I don't know if I'd be breaking as much. You know, you'd get into that like, oh, I'm getting older since I'm 39. Like, what am I doing? Even like my crew member in Vancouver now, who's 42, Vern Villain, we've had conversations where it's like, man, I'm the oldest in the room. Even though he's ill, he feels like, oh, what am I doing here? Hoods is a generally old crew, so it like keeps him going, but like sometimes it has like gotten in his head. I could be doing something else, or there's the pressure, I don't know. I don't know how his lady feels, but maybe just these things come into your head as you age. But in Toronto, let's say, like there's a weekly session that I hold where it's like only old heads, and I'm like one of the youngest in the room now, not one of the oldest. And so it's interesting to get inspired by them because their mind is advanced, but maybe their body isn't the way it used to be. And so they're adapting in a way like, how can I still be ill without doing what I used to do? And so I would get inspired by especially this guy named Leftalep, who's kind of like a local legend. People mention his name, but he was never a champion. He gets into this weird space that like I've never thought of, and then I'm trying to emulate or be inspired by him. Constantly being inspired by someone who loves breaking but can't do what he did, I'm like, okay, what is the next step for Jay? If like I can't do these things, what is an advanced other thing where it's like lighter on the body, but still cool, you know? I'm trying to get more technical. I guess I call them, or he calls them, micro stacks. One of the things he's inspired by is transformers, you know? And so the transforming of like something, he's like envisioning that in his breaking. Like you mentioned something about like breaking down an idea, he's like breaking it down into really small segments. So it's just interesting to watch him break and hear him think, and I'm trying to do that with myself. That session, even though it's not like high level to like how the new gens break, mentally it's like so dope. And so once in a while I'll bring in young guys so that they can see like, or approach the dance like how we are. I always feel that newer gens now are always thinking bigger is better, be more explosive, more energy, more charismatic. And it is. Maybe I like the fact that you can exist and do something else, and maybe just existing for someone to see that, it's like, oh, dope. Like, you can approach dance this way. Maybe it's not gonna win, but it's like you're memorable. You've mentioned something about forgettable winners. Let's say Junked Korean Rock will post a Ken Swift, an Abstract, Amigas, and be like, oh my God, the legends, the GOAT. And it's like, wait a second, where's the footage of them winning? If they were to ever like enter a jam now, I don't think they'd win. But everyone is just like, look how amazing they are, look at their style. Wouldn't you want that? And so I guess the goal, eventually, it took a while for me to get there mentally. It's like, it's more about being memorable. I think we'll always like talk about like some b-boy, like, yo, do you remember that thing he did at that jam? And you're like talked about months, years later. Like that is way more valuable. When I mean forgettable winners, I think we all know someone has won these jams, but we don't recall the winner sometimes. We recall the top 16, top 8 guy that like blew our mind sometimes. And so, or the cypher dude that was like not talked about, but like you remember them doing something super ill. New gens will get caught up in the winning will get you thing, sure. We are praising all these non-winners at the same time. We're all inspired by these people that, you know, they have maybe won some, but they're not like, new gens are chasing a win every single jam, multiple times in a year, the most wins they can get. There's a formula to win. I think some people have figured that out. There's a science to it. Like even judges, like sitting in the judge's seat, sometimes it's just like, oh, I have to vote for this guy. Like this guy crashed, he wasn't smooth, but like the ideas were like in the other dude. it's next level, but in a competition, I'm paid to be a judge for a dance competition. I have to like all of a sudden look through this lens that isn't like, I honestly call it like, in the 2000s, earlier even, some judge could be like, yo, that was whack. And they didn't really need to explain anything, but everyone understood what he meant. But now it's like broken into categories like musicality, was he dynamic, you know? It's like, it wasn't so broken down into science, but now it's like, it's all like infected us that we have to look through this lens.
Box checking.
Yeah, and so now these competitors are realizing like, okay, I gotta box check this, and it's affecting their style. Some people would be specialists at what they liked and did, and they would only be that guy. So it's kind of like if you, like we're playing an RPG, and there's like magic, and then strength and something. There's like a guy who's just like, I'm going all into this. But like, he was amazing at it. And so I would rather like actually kind of like to see that, rather than like someone who's like very good at like everything, but it's like plateaued. Like they're not really special. Jack of all trades, but master of none. This is my opinion on it, that I don't think humans are meant to be everything. They're special with their flaws, and you should like really level up those flaws. You know, even when you think about musicians, it's maybe their voice that is like, we appreciate singers that have a unique voice. They didn't work out the voice and like, you know, like, oh, I have to be louder, crispier, you know, started looking at it like this. Or if we looked at art, it's like, oh, the lines aren't clear enough, you know, we need clearer lines. You know, there's not enough color. It's like, this guy chose a color palette. This guy chose it to be like shown this way. So it's, you know, this needs to be done in breaking. Like, I know a lot of people have already mentioned this, but I'm just another, like Casper mentioned it, like he likes to see characters. There's Marvel characters, you know, and like Iceman does ice. He doesn't do fucking everything. So we need that division of people doing what they love. And yeah, it'll get criticized, but they should just have the confidence to like really be like, I really dig this. I think time and time again, there are people who can change the game and make people realize, wow, that was amazing. Maybe it wasn't such an amazing thing like before, and someone made you view it like, wow, okay, now I want to do this. Like, I'm sure like at one time, Menno basically dancing on his back, doing all these transitions, people are like, what is that? You know, and then now he's got the world transitioning in this way, you know? Some b-boys present it in this new way, and you're like, you digest it, it's like, oh shit, I didn't know it could be done that way. Thesis at one time was doing a lot of like circus stuff. It's not circus stuff, it's Paranoid Android and Sour Patch, but like it's isolation type thing. He did something with that like maybe got a lot of people doing that too. I'm just saying, like he was like really dope at one time, took a style that no one was really doing on a global platform and then popularized it more.
What you're describing, and to maybe look at this conversation from a different light, I feel like this disconnect you're describing between maybe a focus or a love for artistry, going from that more towards box checking. I know it sounds a little harsh. I think people understand what I'm referring to. I want to say is like right before the lockdown is when I started to see that disconnect. An example is I distinctly remember like 2021 when people started coming back to jams, and you had CDS. For us on the state side, we had Breaking for Gold, all this stuff. Obviously that was less popular for a lot of breakers, but something about footage I noticed just changed. Suddenly watching footage was not as fun, not as memorable.
People now make a prelim round. Let's say it's like an intentional, like this is what I'm gonna do in a prelim so that I can, you know, make top whatever. And it's funny because like it ticks all the boxes. It's at least a minute long, sometimes a minute and 30 seconds long. You know, I guess if you enter a jam with hundreds of people, like in their mind, it's like, how else am I gonna enter, you know? And I totally get what they're thinking about. But yeah, it's as jams got bigger and like prizes got larger or stakes got larger, people started thinking in that way, like, I need to be enough. I need this much this. The whole Olympics, and even before that, you know, kind of our system. I don't know if you remember those jams, like R16 existed. All of a sudden, when a lot more of that existed, even though like you go to a jam and it's not an Olympic or that sort of jam, people are still thinking that way. It's no longer like, oh, when I dance at this jam, I dance this way, and then when I dance at a local jam, I dance this way. It's kind of like they're all dancing, keeping that in mind. Maybe breaking was more exciting when it was short spurts of back and forth, but now it's like like all this shit. I even feel that like doing all these moves desensitizes you and also like devalues certain ideas. Like I remember rounds where like, let's say if you watch Amigas, which I'm inspired by, he will highlight certain things as being like the high points in his like round, and they're short. Like this one thing is ill. Take that in. And then like maybe something, and then this is ill. And then, but now it's like 20 ideas where it's like 30 ideas, whatever it is. Doing so much of everything, it makes everything less special. If you're having a conversation, it's like a paragraph of like moves. And so I feel like when I'm watching, even though it's good, it's like I've lost interest. Like, what are you trying to say as a breaker? I'm a big signature-based b-boy, and I always felt, a lot of people think this way, good breakers have signatures, but like they highlight them to show like, this is me. Now it's like someone learning everything and showing everything that they know, that it's just like, where are the signatures though? Like, where are your moves? It's more like someone doing everything.
We're going to start with Fleo, the one-on-one in 2019.
Okay.
So before we watch this, and as I'm pulling this up, can you kind of contextualize mindset and what you remember about this event?
This jam is called Style Wars, and so the winner of this gets flown to a jam called BIS in China. I guess it was a selected group of people that were chosen to do this jam. Before this event, people are like, yo, Jay, are you going to win? And I think when people get to know me, they call me the saddest champion, because I'm like, I don't know. If I'm on, I have the ability to win. Where that mindset maybe is like not great, but this is just who I am as a person, you know? Going into events like this, I guess, I don't have this mindset of like running like everything that I know. It's just more like I go to practice, show up and have fun. If I do well at the jam, I do well at the jam. All I remember from this event actually is like people making fun of me for not like being more hype about it. I was like watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine before the battle, just like hanging out. But maybe that's like, why am I getting myself nervous? It's just like, oh, it's just another battle. I guess once I got into finals, so Fleo is one of my favorite Canadian breakers. He's special, you know what I'm saying? Like when he was young, he was already amazing. And like he was able to present the world with this. He's infected a lot of breakers. And I wouldn't be lying to say that maybe I was inspired by him as well, just to be like, yo, this guy's nasty. And so he beat me in Red Bull 2014 in like the top 16. We were the very first battle of the first Red Bull in Canada. And so I remember someone at the jam saying like, oh, whoever wins this jam is gonna, or wins this battle is gonna win this jam. And so, yeah, he beat me in top 16. And I always held that, you know, internally, like, I'm gonna get you. And then this is the battle where I actually ended up edging him. I still have so much respect for him that like, this battle will mean nothing to him. But to me, I'm like, I got you back one time. And so maybe for some people are saying like, it hasn't happened often where like Fleo has lost in Montreal. And maybe I felt proud that someone said that to me, like I beat him in his own city with Montreal judges. That's like my own little victory that means nothing to no one else, you know what I mean?
Jason, this particular battle, I think I rewatch maybe like every 6 months or so. I think to respond to what you're saying about maybe your mindset is not so ambitious or eager for the competition aspect, I think that's part of why it makes this battle so interesting. I think both of you are just, you're confident in your own way in that you're not thinking about yourselves, you're just thinking about the art. As cheesy as that sounds.
It's true. He's nasty like that. And like, yes, like maybe there's an expectation like, I may lose, but hopefully I'm a memorable figure, you know, no matter what. Like every jam I go, like how can I at least like be memorable to someone? So if it's in the moves, showing a certain idea that I've never done before, adding something at that event, I hopefully someone walks away with like a memory of me.
If you have those certain battles where you're just so results driven, if you're so focused on just taking that round, You'll go back and watch your footage and be like, damn, I look whack. You just know it's a different, when you're drawing from a different place, your breaking just comes out. Comes out different in that way.
It's like if a comedian was like, I want to be a comedian to, like, my only goal is to make someone laugh the most in a short amount of time. I don't know if comedians think like that, but I feel like they're telling a story, they're pulling from their life, you know, and the laughs come with something genuine. I guess in the same way, I hope to be the most genuine I can be. It took a long time to get there. I think every b-boy goes through phases of like, oh, I like this now, or they dabble in something they want to get into and then maybe toss it later. But that's all part of the journey. And then in the end, I think everyone will respect someone not being fake. I feel like someone is faking when someone's trying to be an everything b-boy. Like, you can have these personal like goals to like, I do want to obtain all these things, but like when I see it in a competition, like maybe it's like, I'll watch around and be like, that had no reason being there, that was forced. Or I know he did that because like he felt that would be of value to the judges. I think like as you break longer, you can kind of see that in some rounds. Rounds where it's just, that was fully a genuine throwdown, you know, from this guy, that was real. Yeah, fucking flail's good. Oh, I forgot about that move. I should try to run it again. This is me finessing. I kind of was just like, I had something in mind and now it's just like, okay, I'm freestyling now. You know, one of those moments. But it worked. That was trash. It could have been better. Yeah, I remember Byrne being like, yo, did you mean to do like that part? And I was like, it could have been better. Oh shit, I forgot it was this many rounds. You know, I haven't watched this in a long time. I think this is where like maybe he looked tired and that was like a turning point maybe in the battle. But I don't know what judges are thinking, but maybe that's how I felt. The circle around. Nasty. Oh yeah, I think it was like three rounds all the way up and then 5 in the final. So it was a lot of rounds. Oh, this move right here is funny because like, honestly, I haven't did that move in like 10 years. Like it was like this move like, oh shit, I forgot that I have this and I didn't practice it and I was like, I gotta pull something out like to shine at this moment. Like I knew like, oh, he looked tired and I had to end on a high. So maybe honestly it was like the last couple rounds. Yeah, I got lucky. I got him there. Like honestly, like from my memory of this jam, Fleo was actually getting down a lot in the ciphers. He probably tired himself out, and that worked in my favor. The last couple rounds is where like I ended on a high, and he kind of like plateaued maybe. A big win for me internally.
Style-wise, approach-wise, how do you feel this compares to maybe more recent?
There's certain resets that like I kept on doing. If we're throwing punches, I was like, man, I gotta throw some big punches that are effective. So maybe I was in the mindset of like trying to beat him that way. Compared to now, I don't know, I guess now more than ever, actually, maybe I'm trying to freestyle the most that I can. Like I'm still running combos, but like I have no planned thing ahead of time. We praise rappers or whatever, like, yo, he can freestyle, and that is considered something of high value. Or when you hear someone, oh, he writes his own lyrics. He doesn't need ghostwriters. Off the top is amazing. And I'm sure a lot of like, it's like gambling in a way, because like, it's tapping into that X factor of like, when you see someone too written, maybe someone can sense that. And so when you are kind of dabbling in like that in the pocket X factor type thing, even the watcher or the viewer, watcher and viewer, and even the b-boy doesn't know what's gonna come. And so the impressing yourself is very fun. So maybe that's where I'm at now. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm attempting to do because of that b-boy left to left. This one breaker is like all freestyle. And maybe he's crashing a lot, but I wanna be a more refined version of him. Yeah, at my age when winning, like I'm not gonna get a career from breaking now. And so I'm able to like take more chances and be more free, and there's like no stakes on the line.
Let's watch something more recent now. So we're gonna watch Rock Harder from this year. This was just a few months ago.
Yeah. So I paired up with Burn, and so we've been teaming up a lot lately, which is exciting. Like I'm not down with any like crew in Toronto, even though I'm like homies with a lot. And so I guess like I'm a guy that someone will be like, oh, you want to enter? Okay. He tells me he's not training that hard, but he's like always nasty. Same with me, I'm like 3 times a week. And so us coming together for this event, like I knew I had a strong partner. We're battling some Olympians here. I can't remember the other dude's name. Like we knew we had to like worry about Jeffro. Yeah, he's nasty actually. I always thought, but like maybe not everything in his arsenal I like, just taste-wise, but like he's nasty. And maybe at a time where I felt like, because him and Gravity were crew, he was kind of like in the shadow, but I feel like now he's like created his own pathway and he's nasty now. Yeah, one thing is just like, during this battle, it's like, be signature heavy and try to be original. That's the only thing that maybe in that round I tried to do.
And then we have the tiebreaker.
Yeah, so the tiebreaker, I was like, yo, Burn, you got this? Because he was kind of on fire that night, I felt. And he's like, oh shit, like, I can't remember my moves right now. And maybe it was just like that moment, the pressure's on. He's just like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, all right, fuck it, let's do this. So I went out first, and maybe I was like, oh shit, I haven't ran this move called the Psycho Crusher. Psycho Crusher is like this spin move that like, I know it's like, it's hype, I guess you could say. I was like, yeah, I'll hit him with that. And I kept it short, so you never want to look like you're losing energy, or at least like, you know, a declining thing. If you're like the same, it's better than like going high and then declining in your round. So I just kept it hype, short, and like ended it on a high and signature heavy. I know that he felt like pretty pissed off that he lost. But like, I guess, like Kurt Rage is an American, so I don't think he'd be voting like for me in like a biased way. And also JK is part of Monster, so I felt like, okay, that's 2 against you there. And then I can't remember who the third was, but yeah, I mean, what can you say there? And I hate the whole standoff of waiting to go second, so that's why I always go first. Maybe I would just want to show. That's a Psycho Crusher, which is the M. Bison spin move. And then some techie shit into the Halo Spider Walk. Yeah. And I know that he's gonna outdance me. That's like everyone's like, yo, Jay doesn't dance enough. And I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, I'll get you on some other shit. I felt he was repeating that, so I was like, okay, that's fine, but he did that already.
What do you think?
I don't know. I'm not a fan of like, it was fine, but maybe I just looked more than him. My ending was hype and more original. Even, I don't know, like, I guess my generation, if your freezes weren't tweaked in a way, like the last one was almost like a one-arm handstand, I didn't feel as impressive, even though it's a freeze. I don't know. I guess that's just my opinion on that, but like, it was a good round. Maybe, you know, judges are also looking at like over the course of what I've seen so far. Like judges shouldn't just look at the brown there. It's like, what was he doing like prelim, top 16, top 8, then to this? And then is he repeating, is he this? So maybe he was doing similar type moves or a lot of similar things to this. Maybe that's what judges felt.
That's a good point. Yeah, the overall package, not just what you're doing in that round. It means so much more if you're late in semis and finals and you're doing different stuff. It just hits different.
I guess a lot of people are like, why did I lose? And then we'll just watch this battle, and then people in the comments are like, bias, whatever. But then it's like, yo, a judge's job is to actually pay attention to the whole course. Someone like a Roxrite or Menno, let's say, it's like, even though they all repeat some things, it's still an array of like, yo, more moves. It's still interesting. That just has always been like a valuable thing in breaking, is like having an arsenal that lasts you the whole jam, that you're like saving moves sometimes to like, I'm gonna save this for the finals or semis. These are semis and finals moves, let's say. Like you would hide them even. I don't know, that's just strategy.
The last thing I wanted to talk about is kind of going back to the beginning. We were talking about the creative approach and talking a lot about the artistry aspect with, you know, you dancing with more mature and older dancers at this point. So to kind of frame this last discussion point, someone responded to one of my stories, this was maybe 2 months ago, about the which breaker do you know has 100 moves? And someone responded, you. Let's talk about going back to the creative approach and how you break down certain moves.
I feel I do have 100 moves, but like, so I used to really break down what I had. I used to have a notebook. Every footwork tech that I had, I gave it a name. I would ask someone like, yo, what does this look like to you? So it would just be like, I had a footwork category of things that are like foundational. I called it stepping footwork. One that was like all knees. There's one that I called freakum, which is like anything that was like abstracted from like animal or something weird that you would emulate in breaking. It looks like a footwork, but like, oh, my inspiration was a fish. That was just like my footwork. And then I categorized stuff into intros, middles, and finishes. And this was taken from, so Dizzy used to have a notebook. Here, let's go back. So one of my mentors is a guy named Rubik's Cube from Ground Illusions. He was the first one to really like tell me about storytelling. So storytelling is basically combos and mini sets to simplify it. And then he used to live with Dizzy and also train with Migas. And so he was like, I guess, like this melting pot of Toronto style that people call that now. Before it wasn't a name, he showed me that Dizzy had this notebook where it was like a page cut into 3, and you could like flip the top part and it would be different intros, and then you would go into a middle, and then you could basically flip pages, and each round would be different. You can interchange everything. So I was like, oh, and so he was telling me like, yeah, man, doing sets is better. And so I guess at that time I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that. It makes sense. But then it's kind of funny, like over time he's like, oh, sets aren't good to be pre-written. But I still kept that like kind of formula, but just shortened it. And so like mini combos would maybe be like 3 moves instead of like a 10-second sequence. Yeah, my notebook, it was broken into intro, middle, and finishes just to be effective. Only to like eventually get rid of the notebook. But that's how I know like I had 100 moves, is because like it was written down at one time. Rubik's Cube had a big impact on me with like the whole threading and flow thing. He would talk about like Migas a lot. When Migas was over my head, he made me look back at Migas, and he's like, he would break it down like, you see how this thread leads into this, leads into that. So it's actually taking everything out of breaking that like is unnecessary, and like more like this syncs it with this goes into this, your momentum is pushing you into this, into a finish. And so I guess that is like where I got that mentality from. And so I started to study things like capoeira and wushu. I remember like my homie Shane and I, we would watch footage of just movement and see if we can like take that and put it into breaking. But let's say if you were watching Kung Fu, we wanted to do it in a subtle way that it didn't look like Kung Fu. Like let's say Flowmaster, he would do it intentionally, like he would do that whole like, you know, Kung Fu stance, and I'm like, okay, that's too much. I want the inspiration to be there, but I want it to be like in a subtle way that it was like no one would ever know that it came from that. You mentioned that Moshe is one of my mentors, yes, but like Ruben was the first one. And then if I were to get into a second person that actually really affected me, so I used to date this whacker from Calgary named Danger Cat. I guess how I would perceive her is like a creative whacker. She was doing weird shit. And then so one time I asked her like, how did you come up with the choreo for the show? And the show was called Opulence. She was like, yeah, you know, so this point here, I was angry at my mother for taking a Barbie away or something, and then she had like some choreo doing this, and then she started explaining, this is from my life, childhood, this is from my life. And so I was like, oh, that's how you come up with stuff. So she was much more of an artist before I was, you could say. Her example of like just where things come from and bringing that into the dance, kind of like, people always say it, but it didn't really click to me until she showed me how it could be done. You could say this whacker really affected me. And so after that, the whole like pulling from life, even my name is Bugz. I'm like, how can I like be more of my name? So Bugz means bugging out. When you're surprised at something, it's like, oh shit, I'm bugging out. Or it could mean an insect. So that's where like a lot of like my footwork stuff, like Spider-Man footwork always existed, but like maybe I wanted to flip it that like it would intentionally walk forward, instead of like people think of figure 8 footwork all the time in the same spot. And so like I started to think of other animals. And even Rubik's Cube had like one animal walk. He called it the spider monkey. So it's kind of like, oh, he was doing that already. But like now I understand it, you know? Rubik's Cube, and then to Danger Cat, and then to Moshe. Because like Moshe was always in Calgary, but maybe because he was an opposing squad and I didn't encounter him until like I was a bit older. Then Moshe really instilled things like, yeah, he would just say like really insightful things like, have you seen every cloud in the sky? And I said this in other interviews, but like, no, I haven't. It's like, do you think you've heard every joke? And I'm like, no. And he's like, so that means like it's possible to be original. So one thing that gets thrown around is like, no, it's not. Everything has been done under the sun. So like, what does it matter? But it's like, you really have to like set rules up for yourself. Like if you see something, maybe be like, I shouldn't do that. And so like things like universal moves, I notice someone will see like, oh, well, that was someone's move before. Now 10 b-boys run it. Now, oh, I can run it now. And it's kind of like, still that was someone's, and it's fine. But when you start setting rules and stuff for yourself, it even pushes you in certain directions of like, you know, if everybody shopped at Uniqlo, we're all gonna look the same. You know, if we're all looking at the same inspiration for breaking, we're all gonna eventually look like that, even though we're trying to be different. So it's like, this is where like you have to challenge yourself to like look outward. Even when you look at yourself as a person, you can pull like stupid stuff. Like I pulled like one of my favorite anime movies is Ninja Scroll, and there's like certain characters or postures in that movie that I would try to throw into breaking just for fun. You know, it would just be like a character or even just a move. Like Lego in one of his rounds does a Spider-Man walk with his fingers before like a rainbow. I think he did it at V1. I just watched that battle. Classic move, but you know what I mean? Like that was probably pulled from his childhood that he likes Spider-Man. And so when you start putting things into your character that are genuine, I feel like challenging yourself to do that will make you original, and you'll have like the backstory of why you do stuff. I remember Ken Swift in one of his workshops was saying, yeah, when you see someone do this, it's like, what is this? Or like, what is this in a breaking move context? He's like, people think it's just a breaking move. He's like, I did that because like, he said something about his like uncle was a boxer. And so this is from like the speed bag. So that is literally pulled from his life into breaking. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what is the intention behind certain moves? And what is the goal? Because now people like do it just to do it. You know, because it's like part of breaking.
Yeah.
Or I notice now more than ever, people doing jerking, the jerk down drop, where like, I swear 15 years ago, no one was doing that. There was like some other step that we would do, but now jerking has like kind of like, in rocking, infected breaking where like people do that as like it's just now part of it. But like, no one was doing that before. Someone cool probably did it, absorbed it, now everyone's doing it, you know what I'm saying? But like, there's a history to the jerk and why people do the jerk is what I'm getting at. So like, why do you do the jerk if you're not a rocker? Let's say, I don't know, I'm just asking the question, like, where do things come from? The lineage of Rubik's Cube, yeah, Danger Cat having an effect, Mosh, and then it goes into like my Soul Felons inspirations. They were always affecting me, but like, I remember Footloose saying shit like, what is it that you hate in breaking? And I'm like, hate? He's like, oh, I hate when b-boys do this, this, this. And I was like, oh. And so it made me reflect on like, why did I do something? Kind of like taking everything that he would say is filler, or like, yeah, sure, it's effective, but why do you do it? Like, that affected me a lot. One of the things that like, he would be so smart with basic stuff, like he would take a chair and flip a chair where I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Like, it's just like available right there. Like everyone is thinking bigger and better. And he was able to be like, I'm gonna go reverse and go simplicity route. Like, why didn't anyone do a CC this way? You know, why didn't anyone do this 3-step in this way? And so he was taking like extreme foundation moves, and like in a time where people were being too advanced, he was going back. And I'd be like, man. And so maybe that is like something that affected me too, is his hate for stuff made you really analyze like art, I guess. And he really wanted to be as genuine as he wanted to, like, no filler, he said. No absolute thing that he didn't want to be shown. So I was like, okay. Because maybe, like, let's say when we reset, I should do rounds of footwork to show that I have footwork. I should do something to show that I have knowledge of this. And he's like, no, just get to, like, what you want to say. I'm pretty sure he didn't say it to me in that way, but, like, this is, like, what I took from him while we were living together. Even like, he would listen to jazz where I'm like, you listen to jazz, like why? And like, just certain things of like jazz affected his style of fashion. And so he'd even like, everything about him in his life, he would bring into breaking. And so he's like, oh, all these breakers are wearing these shoes, I'm gonna wear this. Everyone is wearing their pants like this, I'm gonna get these pants. Like, it's just like studying what's out there and choosing to be this. You know, even if he drove a car, he'd buy a car that was his personality. He really personalized his entire life. It like trickled into me, like, why do I wear these types of shoes? Or like, let's say you get thrown a shirt at a jam and people are wearing a silverback shirt. I don't know. It's like, is this silverback shirt me? Like, I'd even like question like, what colors am I wearing? Why do I wear these colors? It like the personalization of like yourself in your outside life, and then what you do in breaking, you really start to like analyze like, what is it that like I'm trying to like show when I break, you know what I'm saying? And so everything is intention, I feel. That's what I'm getting at. And so I guess that is the whole lineage of like who I was. And I took all those things and flipped it afterwards and tried to do the best me. But those examples of everyone are kind of like what I am.
So when you're talking about him moving in the opposite direction, going towards things that are actually more simple while everyone's going advanced.
Yeah.
For example, you can really draw from this from any other kind of craft. I think people just don't think about it in this way. If you take, for example, a beginner gymnast, when gymnasts start as kids at like 5 years old, their technique, their cartwheels all over the place. But by the time you become a master, if you will, there's no chaos. It's just very precise, right? The intent is behind there. Things get actually more simple as you become more masterful in a certain sense, right? All of these inspirations that you have are so deeply personal to you and the people that you have encountered and had the opportunity to interact with. And I think the takeaway just in general for us is that maybe it's a reminder for breakers to make this breaking journey more personal to you, and not just the same Instagram clips that we digest and recycle movement-wise.
There has to be a point where like you ask yourself, you have to love the things you want to do so much that you're excited to show it. If a comedian made a joke and he hasn't shown it to the world yet, like that's how I feel with certain moves. Like I made this at practice. I want to see if like people react. Like it's a little bit external thinking, a little bit, but like I'm like excited to show like, yo, this thing is like so cool. But maybe to someone else it isn't, but like I'm just excited to show it. But like it's genuinely come from inside. I think we're always looking outward and not thinking we're enough. And I feel that's where like a lot of breakers are breaking a certain way now, because there's all this pressure to win. We talked about the jams and how even judges are viewing us. You have to believe that your stuff is of value. You'll always like look at yourself like I'm not enough, but like that is like what you need to believe is like, yo, these footwork techs, this move, like I came up with this and I'm gonna have this conviction like it's the illest shit. Someone needs to start out with that first, or showing what you created. That's it. You know, you're like you took this time at practice to make this thing, and now you're ready to show it to like a viewer. And if they react, it's cool, you know, it's exciting. And so you don't have to wait for the reaction, but like your personal, like I did that. It's like a beat producer making a beat for himself. It's like, this is fucking ill, you know what I mean? Maybe he might not even show everyone, he shows his homies, you know, it's just, I guess all this relates in a whole bunch of different art. Some painters just paint in their house, but they painted it and they're like, I'm proud of this. So the being proud of like your things is like what matters the most, I feel. Yeah, an accumulation of that is like your style. Yeah, we need to go back to like loving our style so much that there's more a range of characters that we see during breaking. Because now it's like everyone's amazing, but like also so many people are not special. Even like, let's say when it comes to top rock, I know like I'm weak and one-dimensional in top rock, but maybe I want to say the lack of form in a lot of things made a look. Now everyone's like, fix your CC, fix your footwork, fix this. And before, maybe someone attempting to do footwork without someone being in their ear on how to do it actually created a look as well. You know what I'm saying? Like back in the day. If there was a footwork battle, I swear to God, there's going to be so many people like use the same things, or I noticed that like resets are all the same. It's almost like there's this catalog of, they're all looking at the, oh, this is how breaking should be. Even the whole like debate, or not debate, sorry, but you should learn everything both ways so that you can do whatever with it. It makes sense, but like I feel like back in the day, no one was having this thought to learn things both ways. It's more like you were doing things the way that you were doing it, and then you would create a move to connect something because it just so happened like oh shit, I need to make something so that I can connect it with this, but they're both in different directions. Like if I were to do it in the reverse way of like, I should learn everything both ways and then try to think of an idea, it's kind of like, you know what I mean?
That's not the end goal.
Yeah. Like let's say Migas, everyone loves Migas. What I heard is like he did power one way, footwork the other, and then he found all these ways to like connect the two, and that's why he looks like so amazing. You know, I'm sure he wasn't thinking, get both ways first and then think of ideas. We're such in a competition era that like there's a way to approach it like you should be all these things to be the best version. And yes, it makes sense, but also like people were just doing this for fun in a genuine like I just want to break and smoke everyone. And that simplicity is actually made way more characters. You know what I mean? It's just there wasn't someone saying something was wrong so much. You would actually be proud to like try to smoke someone with the stuff that you made. And yeah, old breaking used to be a lot more janky and whatever, but like I still watch old tapes like, yo, I love this. It's shorter rounds, but way more interesting and unique. Yeah, like imagine a time that like, let's say air chairs. Before like 2002 or 3, like people weren't running air chairs. Imagine that gone. Like people had other shit, like on a global scale, I mean. You know, like there's just certain things that we see that are normalized now. Like people weren't reverse haloing as much or ever. I swear to God, like Abstract was the first one to be doing that. That before then, now it's like a foundation move. And so it's kind of like it makes me feel like I don't want to run it unless I found a way to flip it in a way that no one's doing it.
I actually heard this just recently. It fits precisely what you're describing. I don't play video games as much as I'm older, but I grew up on a PS1. And one commentator that I heard online recently, he was talking about how games weren't necessarily more fun from PS1 to now, but what people that were making video games were doing, they were just throwing shit at the wall to see what would stick, to see what would fit. That's why you have such a variety of just weird shit, right, in terms of video games around that time. Whereas now, the word you use is normalized, right? Games look more similar now because people have kind of figured out what is fun in that way, but there is more of a formula, more of a streamline.
Yeah, that formula, man. Like, those forgettable winners have figured out the formula to win sometimes. I think we all can see it. But do you want to play that game? Do you want to be memorable, or do you want to be talked about like a Ken Swift, Amigas? It's like you have to sacrifice one or the other sometimes. Like maybe something won't win. Maybe it will sometimes. I would rather be hopefully talked about in the future.
That's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for coming onto the show, and the way that you're able to articulate your own personal experience in a way that I feel like we can take some of this information and not just digest it on our own. I really appreciate you being able to articulate, the personal examples of how your style has sort of progressed over time. Like I said, I think the biggest takeaway for me personally is just trying to figure out how it all fits into put simply, how it fits into your own life, and that's what is going to make us stick out that much more, just because you're being yourself. I mean, as obvious as it sounds, right? But still, it's a good reminder for all of us. Any last thoughts before we adjourn here?
No, just I guess what you were saying is just like ask the question. Ask yourself the question, like get to know yourself. You know what I mean? And so the moment that you like know yourself deeply, maybe that's when you can genuinely show it to the world as well. And so it's self-analysis, understand your weaknesses and your strengths, and be okay with it, I guess you could say. Everyone is strong at something and weak at something. Yeah, and I think that's when you can like eventually bring something genuine to show someone. I apologize for, I'm not the best talker. There's a lot going on, but like, hopefully I said things that are of value to someone out there, you know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing with something like breaking and what you're talking about, right? Is just like, it's very hard to just explain everything.
I'm not that articulate of a guy, I'm sorry.
Jason, thank you once again. Good luck with everything in the future. Of course, we're very excited to continue to see you grow in your own breaking.
Thank you, you too.
Until next time, thanks again.
Yeah, no problem.